Okay, so we're on the Mishnah, beginning of the parak. Beginning of the parak, where are we? Daf Kuf Yutes. Continuing with the same subject about the husband. What woman finds out that her husband died, and halachas about her remarrying. So far, we have the halachas where she comes and she says that her husband died, or that she knows that her husband died. But here there's another issue now, that there's a co-wife. So both her husband and her co-wife went overseas, and the testimony came that her husband died. So we would say if her husband died, so she could marry. But here the issue is about the tzara. There's a co-wife, and the question is about, is it possible that the co-wife became pregnant? And if there means the question, what did she do? Let's say for sure we believe that the husband died. That's a given. The husband died. But now the question is, now what? Should she do yibum? Should she marry out? So she has no children. The question is if she's chayiv in yibum or not. So as they left, the chazaka was that they had no children, and she should do yibum. But since the co-wife also went overseas together with the husband, so we don't know what happened. Maybe this co-wife became pregnant in the meanwhile before the husband died, and then this co-wife, the one who's here, also should not do yibum because the husband has children. So how could she do yibum? Maybe the co-wife had children, maybe not. So she doesn't know what to do. So it says here, she can't do. She's in limbo. She can't do anything. She can't marry out because maybe the tzara did not have children, and so she's chayiv yibum. She can't do yibum because maybe the tzara did have children, and therefore there's no yibum. So she doesn't know what to do. So she can't do anything. She can't marry out, and she can't do yibum, even if the yavam is here. The brother-in-law is here. This woman is here. The brother-in-law is here, but the husband and the co-wife are not here. So therefore, she's in limbo until I'll take that and make the room over here. Until she finds out what happened with the co-wife. That's the first part of the Mishnah. Next part of the Mishnah, when she left with her husband, she didn't have a brother-in-law. Her husband had no brother, so there's no yavam. Even if he dies without children, but there's no brother-in-law, so she can marry out. But the question is, there's a mother-in-law. The mother-in-law is not around. Maybe she had a child. Maybe she had a child, and now her husband has a brother, and there is a yavam. So when they left, as far as we know, she doesn't have to do yibum. She can marry out. But now the question is, does she have a brother-in-law who she's chayiv yibum to? So the Mishnah says, "Ein chosheshes." She doesn't have to worry that maybe her mother-in-law had a child now, and she has a brother-in-law who she's chayiv yibum to. She could get married. She can marry out. But the Yatzah Malaya, if the mother-in-law left when she was already pregnant, so then the question is, did she give birth to a son or not? Means that the only problem is going to be here if there's a son. If she gives birth to a girl, there's no yavam. The only issue is if she give birth to a son. So it says here, if she was not pregnant, you're not choshesh that she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. But if she was already pregnant, the question is only, is it a boy or a girl? Then machlokas. Chosheshes, but Bishua and choshesh. Tanakama says that she's choshesh that maybe it's a boy, and therefore she has a yavam out there. Maybe she won't be able to marry out. But Bishua says she doesn't have to. Even in this case, even in the case where she went pregnant, he's still not choshesh that it was a boy. It could be something that maybe it was a girl. And also, just to point out the other side, also that maybe it was a nephil, maybe she didn't give birth to anything, and therefore she doesn't have to worry. Maybe she's chayiv yibum and she could marry out. So the Mishnah had two cases. Again, the first case was that she left, assuming that if the husband's going to die, she's going to be chayiv yibum because they have no children. But since the tzara also went together with the husband, it could be that she became pregnant and she gave birth, and now she can't do yibum. Since she doesn't know, she's in limbo. She can't do yibum and she can't marry out until she finds out. Second case, she doesn't know she has a brother-in-law. She does not have to be choshesh that the brother-in-law was born, and therefore she could marry out since her husband died. And machlokes, if the mother-in-law left when she was pregnant, are you choshesh that she gave birth to a son or not? So the Gemara first talks about the word shemu muberes he tzarasa. That's a little strange terminology. It says that she cannot marry out, or she could put it, she can't do yibum, because she has to be choshesh that her co-wife became pregnant. So the word he is not so much in place. That she should have said shemu muberes sarasa. What's the word shemu muberes he tzarasa? It's like emphasizing maybe the tzara became pregnant. Why is he used that kind of a terminology? My hitzarasa. What does that word mean? Hitzarasa. The answer is Hakamashma and the tzara, the hot tzara who the chashinan. Aval the tzara chmiti lo chashinan. That only if you know that she has a co-wife, that you know she had a co-wife, that co-wife went together with her husband overseas. And then you're choshesh. The whole issue is, did that co-wife become pregnant or not? But you're not choshesh, so something you don't know. Is it possible that the husband married somebody else, married a third wife, and you don't know about that? So that it says you're not choshesh for an unknown wife. That's not the problem. The only problem is the wife that you knew about, and if it comes verification that she comes back and she's not pregnant, or then that's all you have to know. You don't have to be choshesh. Maybe he married another woman that you don't know about. The Mishnah continued. Lo sinasa v'lo tisabim. Since we don't know this first case, we don't know if the tzara is pregnant or not, so she can't get married and she can't do yibum. The Gemara's kasha is a very interesting question. Bishlam yibum lo the duma. We understand why she can't do yibum. Again, the woman that's over here, her husband and a co-wife went overseas, and she found out that her husband died. And the question is, could she do yibum or marry out? So we say you can't do yibum because maybe your tzara is pregnant, and that the Gemara understands. We understand why she can't do yibum because maybe the co-wife did become pregnant, and if she's going to marry her brother-in-law, she's marrying her brother-in-law, which is also the rice. Now, this is the rice to marry your brother-in-law without yibum. That we understand. But the Gemara does not understand the other part. Why can she not marry out? Why do we say don't marry out? Maybe the co-wife is not pregnant. If she's not pregnant, then you're chayiv in yibum. You can't marry out. But that's the most kasha that we don't understand. Why not marry? The Gemara says interesting thing that you could be samach and rov. That rov women, when they get married, they do become pregnant, they do give birth. So that's the whole question. You don't know. You know that there's a co-wife out there together with your husband. And the question is, did she give birth? Probably she gave birth. That since rov women, when they get married, they become pregnant and give birth. So wait, the amount of time that will make it a rov, I don't know, 9 months, a year, whatever you think, a year and a half, that most women with that time would have given birth, and you could assume she gave birth and marry out. You don't know. She didn't come back. The tzara didn't come back. But after a year and a half, let's say, you could assume that she gave birth and get married. That's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara says, the only thing the Gemara can think of that goes according to a mayor that he's not someone on rov, even though you're right, that rov nashim, they would give birth, and therefore you should be able to marry out. But a mayor, in general, we'll see soon a few cases, a mayor says that you're choshesh v'miyat. He's not so much on the road. He's worried about the minority possibility. And therefore, since some women don't give birth right away or don't give birth, so then she's not allowed to assume that the tzara gave birth and to marry out. She has to be choshesh that the tzara did not give birth, and she cannot marry out. That the Gemara understands. If it's a mayor, it's good. But the Gemara says that tries another teretz. I feel it could be the Gemara tries, maybe even Rabbanan will also agree over here that you choshesh for the miyut, you choshesh for the possibility she didn't become pregnant. Ki as the Rabbanan basa ruba disikaman, ki gon teisha chanuyos for Sanhedrin, avol ruba the lesikaman, was the Rabbanan basa ruba. The Gemara says there are two kinds of robes, two kinds of majorities. One is what we would call actual majority chances. Here's the case of teisha chanuyos. That means a famous case that you find a piece of meat on the street on the meat what is it called? The district. What do they call like that jewelry? What do they call that? The meat district. And you have a bunch of meat stores. 9 of them sell kosher, and one of them the meat exchange. 9 of them are kosher, and one of them is not kosher. And you find a piece of meat in the middle of the street. You don't know which store it came from. It doesn't have any plumber or anything like that. So you're allowed to go with the rove. And you say that probably came from one of the rove stores, and you're allowed to eat it. You're allowed to assume that it's kosher. That's the case where Rabbanan say you're not kosher for the meat, you go with the rove. Another case, Sanhedrin, that when you have a vote, they have a question and you vote, so then you have a majority vote, you go with the majority. That's called that is in front of us. Ruba the Isa Kaman is a rove which is in front of us. These two cases, the meat is in front of us, the 9 stores are in front of us, the Sanhedrin, the majority against the minority is in front of us. But Ruba the Lasikaman is what we would call statistics. Statistically, that's probably the way it is. So here, women who give birth means most women give birth. That's called statistics. That according to the statistics, most women give birth. Maybe that's not as strong a robe as the robe which is in front of us. These two cases of Teisha Chanuyas, the 9 butcher stores, or Sanhedrin, that's a better robe. And even the Rabbanan who say not choshesh for the meat is only by that kind of a robe. But by Ruba the Lesikaman, statistics, maybe the Rabbanan also hold choshesh for the minority possibility. And therefore, in this case over here, that most women give birth, it's called the Ruba de Lasikaman. It's called statistics. And therefore, the also choshesh you go for the miyat, the choshesh for the miyat, you worry about it. And it's possible this tzara, the co-wife, did not give birth, and did not become pregnant to give birth. And therefore, the woman does not know that she could marry out Lashuk. But the Gemara says that's not true. I'll show you that Rabbanan, they also go with the statistics, and if the statistics, the Rove says this is usually what happens, you're allowed to rely on that. What does the Gemara bring? The Gemara is going to bring the subject which we learned already about how much chance is there that a boy is going to be sterile or a girl is going to be sterile. And it says that Rabbanan Asama, that most people are not. Most people are not sterile, and you could assume that they're not. Here's the case. A minor boy, a minor girl. The case is that they're sterile. The question is going to be, could do Yibum or not? And the one are going to say, you could do Yibum. Here it goes. This also is a question of statistics. The Rabbanan say you could assume that since statistically most children are not sterile, you could assume that this child is not sterile. The Rebbe says that a minor boy and a minor girl cannot do chalitza Yibum. The case would have been that the katan and the brother-in-law, who's the man died without children, and his wife is fallen to Yibum, and the brother-in-law, the yavam, is a katan, so he cannot do chalitza or Yibum until he grows up. And the ketana means that the wife, the widow, is a ketana. Also, if she's a ketana, she can't do chalitza or Yibum. That's what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbanan say we agree to you that a katan and a ketana, both of them cannot do chalitza because it says ish. The pasuk say ish over there. I forgot the pasuk where it says in the Mamash, the pasuk of Yibum, it says ish. When I talk about the man by chalitza. So over there, we understand that has to be adult. And also, even though it doesn't say isha, it doesn't say. Okay, maybe that's the pasuk. It says ish. So over there, we understand that the man has to be a gadol, has to be an adult in order to do chalitza. Also, the woman, even though it doesn't say the word isha, but hekesh ish isha, that they're compared to each other. So both the man and the woman, both of them have to be adults. But how come you say that they can't do yibum? Why not? Why can't the katan and ketana do by yibum? It doesn't say anything about ish and isha. So what's the problem? Why can't they do yibum? To have relations when they're young, and there'll be a good yibum. Rabbi Meir said, because I don't know that maybe they're sterile. We know everybody agrees that a sterile man or a sterile woman cannot do yibum because the whole purpose is only lakum shein lo'achid in order to have children, and they're not going to have children, so there's no mitzvah of yibum. So it's going to be a brother-in-law without a mitzvah of yibum. So that's what he says. Katan shem yimotzi saris katan shem timotzi islanders. I don't allow to do yibum because maybe the boy is going to be sterile, and maybe the girl is going to be sterile. Because that's going to come out that they had relations with the erba, brother-in-law without a sister-in-law, without a mitzvah of yibum. But Rabbanan are not concerned. Rabbanan sabri zilbas ruba diktanim rov ktanim lav suisininu zilbas rov ktanos lav islanders ninu. Rabbanan say there's no problem that you're allowed to assume, according to statistically, that most boys are not going to be sterile, most girls are not going to be sterile, and therefore we can tell them to do yibum, and we're not going to be choshish for that. And that's called statistics. That's called ruba delesakaman. So you see that the Rabbanan are not choshish for even a myriad of statistics. And here too, the question is, if most women become pregnant and give birth, and the Rove says yes, statistically, so Rabbanan should say you're not choshish, and the woman who's here and doesn't know if her co-wife became pregnant can assume safely that she became pregnant and gave birth, and she'd be allowed to marry out. So we have to go back. I think the word machvarta means the clarity is the white, clear, that the clarity is the way we said before, that our Mishnah is a mayor, and according to Rabbanan, she would be able to marry out. So just to go back to the Mishnah started off saying that if a woman's husband and co-wife went overseas and she found out that her husband died, but she doesn't know what happened with her tzara, so the Mishnah says that she cannot marry out because she has to be choshish that the tzara is not pregnant. She's chayiv yibum. She can't do yibum because she has to be choshish that her co-wife did become pregnant. So she doesn't know what to do, so she's in limbo. That's only Rav Meir. But the one will say she could assume safely that her tzara became pregnant and she could marry out. Is it making sense? Case again, a woman's here and her brother-in-law's here, but her husband and co-wife went overseas and the husband died. But she doesn't know the status of the tzara. If the tzara is pregnant and gave birth, so then she doesn't have to do yibum, right? Because the co-wife did. She does have to do yibum because the co-wife has a baby. Her husband has a baby. So she can't do yibum. Even though the brother-in-law is here, maybe her co-wife became pregnant and there's no yibum. Could she marry out? Also not. Maybe the co-wife did not become pregnant. If the co-wife did not become pregnant, so her husband doesn't have any children, so she'd have to do yibum. So she doesn't know what to do. The Mishnah says, don't do anything. you're in hold until you find out what happened with the Zara. The Gemara just, again, I'm sorry, it's a good question. The Gemara, but the Gemara will talk about that soon. But Gemara does say so far that this is only according to Rav Meir, that there's a chashash, maybe the co-wife did not become pregnant. But according to Rabbanan, you're allowed to go with the statistics that most women, when they get married, they become pregnant and give birth. And therefore, she's allowed to assume that the Sarah did have a baby and she could marry out.
Today you would say it's different because then you have people like this child birth control.
Okay, we're talking about that. And what are you saying, Moshe?
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable to assume that most women, they give birth, it's a little, it's a responsible thing. That's so how long does it take? So I'm not going to say 9 months, we'll say a year and a half.
You don't know for sure she became pregnant.
But you go with the rule. We're not sure. We say rule. Rule chances. Rule statistic. That she gave birth.
Within a year?
Within a year, say a year and a half. Whatever's going to be the rule. We have to look statistics. At what point, how long after marriage do most women give birth? And if we have such a statistics that you have a rule, 51% of the women that give birth, then you'd be allowed to assume that she could get married out. She could marry out.
Even though she didn't.
Yeah, she knows she's not pregnant, but the co-wife.
Right. So at the same time, she didn't become pregnant. We're saying.
Yeah, yes. She didn't become pregnant. The husband left. They went overseas. But how long are they married already? I don't know. It doesn't say. But once they left and they're there for 9 months, a year and a half, 2 years, you're allowed to assume that they had children, and then she could get married out without being worried that the co-wife didn't become pregnant. That's the Gemara till now.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes, please.
If the two of the wives have not had children for, let's assume that it's a few years. I don't know. I'm just giving a number. Can we assume that maybe he doesn't have children, he can't have children, and therefore
can't have children. He can't have children.
Yeah, he's sterile for some reason. Therefore, both the wives.
No, if he's sterile, there's no yevamos at all. Then there's no issue. If the husband was sterile, there's no yevamos and she can marry out.
No, I'm saying that maybe there's a chazaka that after 2 or 3 years of having no children, the onus falls on the Baal and not on the two women.
Okay, or not after the Baal. He's saying the women. He's saying the Chaim was pointing out that this is all very nice if everything's right in the beginning and everything might be fine and healthy. But if it's a couple of years already, they don't have children, so then you don't have a robe anymore. Nice point. I don't know the answer. Maybe the Mishnah. Here the Gemara says you could assume with the robe, and you're saying some cases the robe doesn't apply if you see that things are not going the right.
Exactly, because maybe it looks like he's the one who doesn't have is not able to produce children.
But the point is saying it doesn't make a difference if it's him or them. It doesn't make a difference. If there's most chances now that they're not going to have children, it doesn't make a difference him or her. That's not the point. The point is that maybe the co-wife does not have children because they hadn't had children in a couple of years. So you're asking maybe there's no robe anymore and she shouldn't be able to marry out. Okay.
I just said one more example. So very older girls.
Okay. If you don't have the robe anymore. Okay, the Gemara is saying in the case where you could have the robe, you're allowed to go with the robe. The Gemara continues with this problem. The Ma'akim take Rav Meir. So you want to say that Mishnah is only Rav Meir that says Yechoshish for a meal. The Gemara is a kasha, Ema Seifa. The Seifa doesn't fit with Rav Meir. It says Haisa Lachamos, Ein Lachasheshes. What did it say? That she left this husband. The husband went away, and we found out that he dies. And the woman over here, the wife over here, she wants to know if she could do yibum, if she should. Now, as far as she knows, she has no brother-in-law. I said that wrong. She has no brother-in-law, and she wants to marry out because even though they have no children, but she has no brother-in-law either. The brother died, no brother. Okay, so there's no yibum. But the mother-in-law might have become pregnant and given birth before the husband died. She doesn't know if her mother-in-law gave birth. So the Mishnah says, "Eino chasheshes." You don't have to worry that maybe the mother-in-law gave birth, and now you have a brother-in-law. And you have to do yibum. So it says Eino chasheshes, and the Gemara is going to ask why not? Why Eino chasheshes? Why not choshesh? Maybe the mother-in-law gave birth. The Gemara is going to say because it's a very small chance that she gave birth to a son. Why? Because even when a woman becomes pregnant, it's 50-50 if it's a boy or a girl. And if it's a girl, there's no brother-in-law. There's no problem with yibum. And also, it's not always 50-50. It could be also a possibility that's an April. Maybe it's a stillborn, even though it's a very small, maybe 1%, whatever it's going to be, 0.5%, but it's something. And therefore, it's 50-50 makes it a boy and a girl. And also the possibility that it was a stillborn makes it even less than 50% that it was a boy. So therefore, the Mishnah says, in the Choshesh, she doesn't have to worry that maybe I have a brother-in-law who was born. But the Gemara is going to ask, if you're going to Rav Meir is Choshesh L'miyot. If you say the beginning of the Mishnah is Rav Meir, that's why you're Choshesh for a miyot, that so it didn't become pregnant. There's a miyot over here also, that maybe the mother-in-law did give birth to a son. So how come she's allowed to get married out and she doesn't have to worry she has a brother-in-law? According to Rav Meir, you should be Choshesh that she got a brother-in-law. That's the Gemara's kasha now. Mike him to Rav Meir, Ema Seifa. Why not? Amai. The whole reason is going to be 4 lines to explain why you're not choshesh, and the kasha is going to be at the end, you should worry. Here it goes. Most women do give birth, so maybe the mother-in-law did give birth. But miyat mapilos, there is a minority that have a stillborn, so that's one possibility. Those who do give birth, it's 50-50 if it's a boy or girl. But 50-50 if it's a boy or girl, plus add on the small percentage that it was a stillborn, so it's going to be only a minority chance that it was a boy. So therefore, you're not choshesh that she had a boy. But the more it says, according to a mayor, the kash coming back. If you hold like a mayor, if our mission is a mayor, says you choshesh for mere chances. So here, also you should be choshesh. How could she get married, assuming she has no brother-in-law? Maybe she has a brother-in-law. There's a small chance she has a brother-in-law. The more answers, the answer is, even our mayor is going to, the more says, maybe the answer is that since she has a chazakah that she's mutter, she doesn't have to worry. It means that when she left, when the whole story happened, her husband left, she didn't have a brother-in-law. So she has a chazakah that she's mutter to marry without yibum. So there's a chazakah. Even though Armei is choshesh lemiyot, but there's a chazakah that's helping her out. The chazakah says that she could marry out. So therefore, she doesn't have to worry for the miyot. Even Armei that said that you're choshesh for miyot, but not against the chazakah. If you have a chazakah, you're okay. Then what's the constant ratio, the ichzik yibum tiyame? And the ratio, what was the case of the ratio? That she left with the chazakah that she should do yibum. When the husband left overseas with the co-wife, there were no children. And he didn't have even no children. She wasn't pregnant. The co-wife wasn't pregnant. So and there was a brother-in-law. So there was a cheskas that she's mechuyev yibum. So how come over there Rav Meir says don't do yibum? Then what was kasha? How come you don't marry out? We said don't marry out because the Rav Meir will say maybe she didn't become pregnant. But here the was asking how about the husband? Let her do yibum. Let her do yibum. There's a chazakah. There's a chazakah. The answer should be obvious that there's a rove that. What does the Rov say? Again, on one hand, we have she went out with a chazakah that she could do yibum. And now what do we have? That maybe the Torah became pregnant, and she can't do yibum. And that's even Rov chances. So the kasha doesn't make too much. The kasha is very hard. The kasha is not that it doesn't make sense, but the kasha is hard because it's true there's a chazakah, but there's a Rov against the chazakah. The chazakah said she could do yibum because there was no child. But the Rov says that the Sarah did become pregnant and give birth. So the Rov, the answer should be simple. The Gemara is going to say this at the end, that the Rov says that she cannot do Yibum because the Sarah had a child. The Gemara is looking at it like the Miyat overrides the Rov. Surely Rabbi doesn't say like that. Rabbi says Shechoshish for the Miyat. It doesn't say the Miyat is stronger than the Rov. The Gemara is going to get to that at the end. But at this point, the Gemara is asking, if you're saying go with Chazaka, the Gemara is just noticing. You say Chazaka is strong. The Chazaka here in the ratio was that she is Chayv Yibum, so let her do Yibum. Amr Rav Nachman, Amr Abba Bavu, a ratio this occur is Chashishim. Say for this, Allah lo Chashishim. The ratio where she left, the Tzara, the husband and the Tzara left, and the question is if she's allowed to marry the Yavam. That's the Chashash of Issachar. Because if there's no Yavam, so then she's marrying a brother-in-law without him. That's Chayv Kares. So then we're not going to say that you rely on the Chazakah to do Yavam if there's a Chashash Kares. But in the Sefer, what's the worst going to happen over here? She's going to marry out. The case of the Sefer was that she didn't think that she has a Yavam. As far as she knows, she has no brother-in-law, and she wants to marry out. And Rabbi Meir will say you can be samach on the chazakah. Why? Because at worst, even if you're wrong, the worst you're going to be doing is marrying out. That's this yivam l'shuk. Lo siya ichisamei sachutz lezor. It's isser lav. So by isser lav, samach on the chazakah. By isser kares, we're not samach on the chazakah. That was Rav Nachman Amr Abba Bavu's teretz. Reisha that's a chash isser kares the choshesh, and you're not samach on the chazakah. But say for this a lav, it's only a lav. Then over there, lo choshishu, they're not worried and they rely on the chazakah. But the Gemara says there's no difference. Everything's the Issa the Raisa, even though it's not Koris, but it's just the Raisa. Mali is a Koris, Mali is a Lav. Why should they be more lenient by the Lav than by the Koris? If you samach on the chazakah by Lav, you should be samach on the chazakah by Koris also. Elam Rabba, this is the simple answer now. Reisha chazakah liyibum v'rubu l'shuk. The Reisha, where the husband and the co-wife left over there. How does it go? The Chazakah says she should do Yibum. The Chazakah says, as far as we know, she has no children. He has no children. She should do Yibum. But the Rov says that she could marry Lashuk because the Rov says that the Sarah had a child, and now there's no necessity for Yibum and marry out. So as far as the Chazakah lo adif kiruba. So a rove against the chazaka, surely the rove wins. So that means that the chazaka is not going to let, what was the kasha? Let it do yibum because of the chazaka? Surely the rove outweighs the chazaka. So we're not going to let it. The kasha seems to be like an easy answer. What was the kasha? The quantum meya, choshish for the miyat. So go against the rove? Of course not. Use the chazaka against, use the chazaka that's chayiv yibum against the rove. No, the rove is stronger than the chazaka. And also, as far as you want to marry Lashuk, I see miyuta de mapilos, smocha chazaka, beverly palgo palga, and also lo sinase. She can marry out to the world, to Lashuk, because even though the rove says that Sarah did become pregnant, but there's a miyut mapilos, and the chazaka that also she's not supposed to marry to the shuk, and that's why not to marry to the shuk and not to do yibum either. But Seifa, Chazaka l'shuk, Ruba l'shuk, have a lescham, muta the l'chayshab meir. The answer is the way we said it before. The reason why in the Seifa she doesn't have to be choshish that her mother-in-law became pregnant and gave birth to a boy, because that's a mere chances. So the Chazaka says she can marry l'shuk, because as far as she knows, she has no yavam. And the Rove also says that probably probably there's no brother-in-law, because the Rove chances is it's not a boy. There's going to be 50-50 that it's a boy or a girl, plus there's a possibility that it's a nefil. So the possibility that it's a boy is only a miyat. So you have a robe and a chazaka, that's why it's not choshish. So to sum it up so far, just to go back to the Mishnah and to sum it up with the Gemara's explanation, the first case where the husband and Sarah went to Medina when the husband died, what's the halacha? So the Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Meir, you surely can't do yibum, because the Rove says that the Sarah gave birth. So you can't do yibum, but you can't marry because Rabbi Meir is choshish l'miyut. See that maybe she did not give birth, and therefore there is a chiyuv yibum, so you can't marry out. Our Mishnah Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbanan, you would be able to marry out because you could assume that she became pregnant, and there's no mitzvah yibum, and you can marry out. We should pass like the Rabbanan according to this, and she could marry out. And the second case, even Rabbi Meir is not choshish that the mother-in-law gave birth, and now there's a brother-in-law that has to do yibum, and you can't marry out, because even according to Rabbi Meir, here there's a rove and a chazaka. Both of them say that you could marry out. The chazaka was that there's no brother-in-law, and the rove is also that there's no brother-in-law because it might be a sister-in-law, or it might be a nothing, it might be a nefil. So that Rabbi Meir also would say she doesn't have to be choshish. The Gemara continues. Now comes Rabbi Avram's question that it says in the beginning that she's in limbo. She can't do miyat, yibum, and she can't do marry out. But the question is, do chalitza? Well, the olam, that's the most kasha. She has to be in limbo forever. Means she doesn't know if she doesn't get information. The Sarah's not coming back. The husband died, and the Sarah, we don't know where she is. We don't know if she's pregnant. Did she become pregnant from the husband or not? So how long is this woman going to be waiting around? That says that she just has to wait 9 months. Means on the side that 9 months after the husband died. And if she's pregnant, so then she would have given birth, and then this woman over here could marry out. What's the chash? Maybe she didn't. So then she'll have to get chalitza. The yavam is available over here, so she waits 9 months and then she does chalitza. Rashi explains she can't do chalitza right away and marry out, because if the tzara is pregnant, so then you have to wait till the baby's born, because the fetus does not pater from yibum. You have to wait until he's born. So she has to wait 9 months. But after that, she could do chalitza. So you're right that you could do chalitza. Just wait until the chash is over. She waits 9 months, and then even if on the side that the co-wife did become pregnant, so she gave birth already also, and now there's no yibum. Now I can marry. On the side that she didn't become pregnant, I could have gone already out. But Enechanami, this Gemara says you could do chalitza, just wait 9 months, you do chalitza. That was Ziri, that he says, wait 3 months. 3 months means for herself, that she has to know she's not pregnant. She could tell herself that she didn't know, maybe she's pregnant. Wait 3 months since the husband left. And as far as the Sarah, wait 9 months to make sure if she's pregnant that she gave birth already, and then she could do chalitza, one of shach. Either way, she could do chalitza. But Rav Chanina argues on Ziri and says, no, last much losha, but l'chaber tol olam. It is true for herself. 3 months will be good enough. But here, since it's the question not of herself, it's a question about the chavata. She has to wait forever. Chavata means the tzara, the co-wife. Co-wife is called the chavata. She's here, the woman is here, and her husband and co-wife went to overseas. Husband died, and she doesn't know what's doing with the tzara, with the chavata. Tzara, she doesn't know what's doing. Is she pregnant or not?
So for herself, she waits.
It means if she'd only be questioning of herself, a woman by herself, it doesn't mean anything. It means that herself here is not relevant anymore because she has to wait anyway for the tzara. It just means if it only be a question of herself, a woman whose husband there's no tzara, just herself, she has to wait 3 months to see if she's pregnant. That's standard.
Ah.
That's down. But here, since there's a tzara here, she has to wait. How
It's
long?
very confusing.
Okay.
The Chabad Alem, she has to wait because
Yeah.
maybe.
Maybe the tzara, that's the most kasha. The most going to explain what does it mean. The most asking that she can never get married. She has to wait. She's in limbo. Why? The question is, if you wait 9 months and you do chalitza, you're surely covered. That's the most kasha of tachlis manavshach. What's the problem? Wait 9 months and do chalitza, and there's no chash. Abai barabin, Rabfina barabin, Amitavayu, Gzeresh Shamayay Vlad ben Kayama, Venimsata Matzricha Cruz Lacuna. She'll do chalitza. Let's say she'll do chalitza. Then it comes out. Then the news finally comes back that the tzara did give birth. So the chalitza was for nothing. There was no chalitza because there was no yibum. The husband, the late husband, had a child.
Right.
So what's the problem? That you're gonna have to say that the chalitza was nothing. The woman that gets chalitza can't marry a kohen, and now you're going to say that you could marry a kohen. That the chalitza was a joke. The chalitza was a mistake. So we're going to have to announce that she's mutter to marry a kohen. We don't want to do that. Why not? What's the problem? So announce that she's mutter to a kohen. It could be some people are going to know she got chalitza, and they're not going to find out the new announcement that the chalitza was a joke. They're going to see her getting married to a kohen. They know she got chalitza. They see her marrying a kohen. That's going to say the chalitza is allowed to marry a kohen. We don't want that. So we don't do chalitza in a scenario where it might become clarified that the chalitza was wrong.
So I have an idea. Let's say that she can marry anyone besides a
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, so that's the kasha. Make it a kana. She shouldn't be able to marry Kohen. Ever. Even if it comes out that the whole thing is a joke, she shouldn't be. So they didn't want to do that. It seems they didn't want to do that.
You're leaving on Kuno.
Very nice. That's very kasha. That he's telling you don't marry anybody. We're assuming that she's going to be able to find out. She'll find out eventually. But you're saying that there are cases where she's not going to find out and let her marry somebody.
And she would probably, even if they'll only find out on the issue, she'd probably be willing to marry this role.
If she has a good shidduch right now, she'll marry Yisrael. She doesn't want to Kohen now. What's the problem?
So,
yeah, and if you tell her you can't marry a Kohen, she'll find somebody
no,
else.
this happened now. No, she's a better hit for Kohen. Because in those days there weren't a lot of Gushim. So there are a lot of people didn't get divorced in those days like today.
No, they're more Israelim. They're more Israelim.
No, and she's a second marriage, so she's better if she gives herself available for a Kohen. The Kohen doesn't have so much of a choice.
Okay. But anyway, that's what the Gemara says, that in order to say that she shouldn't become Asif the Kohen needlessly, on the side that it's really nothing, say doing chalitza, and then later I'm going to say that it's nothing, and it's going to be hard to retract that. So we don't want to make you Asif the Kohen if you don't have to. The Gemara is a kasha on this. I'll show you cases where you do chalitza, even though it might become clarified that it was a nothing. Tana, nitan liben. We had this before. We had this yesterday or 2 days. Nitan liben b'dinas hayam. V'amro meiz b'ni v'akach bali nemenes. Meiz bali v'akach b'ni en nemenes. V'chosh shen l'dvarev v'choletz es lo mishebemes. What was this all about? She left, and we, as far as we knew, when she left with her husband, she didn't have a son. As far as we knew, she didn't have a son. And they come now. The question is going to come back. She comes back. My husband died. So if she said she had a son and he died before the husband, so that's like saying nothing. She's saying she's chayv yibam. Okay. She had a son, he died, then the husband died. It's irrelevant that the husband that she had a son and died. But the other case is that she said that you think I didn't have a son? I did have a son. My husband died, and then the son died. So she's saying she's not chayv yibam. She left, and as far as we're concerned, if her husband died, she's chayv yibam. Right. She comes back and says, you didn't know about it, but I had a son, so I'm not chayv yibam. So it says, ein in a menace, that since she's going against the chazaka, we're not going to trust her. She wants to marry out. We're not going to let her marry out. Which means he are choshesh for her, and even though we would say that she should get chalitza, because as far as we're concerned, she does need yibum, right? As far as we know, she left without a son. She comes back and says, my husband died. Okay, so you have to do yibum. But she says, I have a son. So we would have, on our own, we would have said she should do yibum. So we're not going to let her do yibum because she says she can't do yibum. She says she has a son, but we're not going to let her marry out. She says she wants to marry out. We say, no, you need chalitza because we don't trust you that you have a son. Okay, that's all the Mishnah. But the most kasha is, if you say that we don't do a chalitza, that might become later on clarified that it was in vain. There was no such chalitza. Here also, maybe Edom are going to come and say that she was right, that she did have a son, and the chalitza was nothing. So here you have it. You're saying you don't do a chalitza, which might become clarified that it was in vain, because you possibly her to a coin for nothing. Here we make her do chalitza. Why do we make her do chalitza? Because we don't trust her that she had a son. but it might be verified. Adam might come and say that she's right, that she had a son. And if so, we're going to say that chalitza was nothing and she can marry a Kohen. So you see, not choshesh for this whole story that we make a chalitza in vain. I'm Rav Papa Begusha. The Mor's going to answer, really, you don't make a chalitza if it might come retracted, because you can't retract the chalitza. We don't want to pass the whole coin for nothing. The case is she's a grusha anyway. This woman, her history, she's a grusha already. Before this husband, there was another husband, and she was a grusha, so she can marry a kohen anyway. So it doesn't affect the whole issue about making her chalitza in vain is not relevant, because anyway she can marry a kohen. She's a grusha. But if she's not a grusha, then you would not do a chalitza. In our case, also, she's a grusha, then we'll say, in this case over here, where it says she's in limbo, if she's a grusha, then we'll do a chalitza. It's only to save her from becoming a chalitza for nothing. In the case where she says there are no Edom, I had a son, but no one knows about it. When she says, me and my husband, we were hiding in a cave, and that's where I had the son, and the husband died, and the son died, and she says there are no Edom. So she's the only problem, only worried about her, that's saying that she had a son, and that's the only reason why we're being choshesh, that she had a son. On the side, she had a son. She also just says there are no Edom, that they're going to come and testify. So there's no chash that chalitza is going to be annulled.
But we believe her that she says her husband died.
Yes, that we do believe. That we do believe. Yes.
So then why don't we believe with the son?
That thing was said before already, that we only believe her because of Aguna, that her husband died, but she doesn't have an amounts to say that her son died, that she got a son, that she's going against the chazaka. The chazaka says, as far as we know, she has no son. She's telling that she had a son, and she's not chayiv yibum, and that we don't believe her. Okay, next case. Shtei yevamos. This is, I have a chart that's not a chart at all, it's just to hold cup a little bit. Maybe that's enough over there. Is that enough just to see that little thing? Make that little small. There's just going to be a Reuven Shimon, two brothers, and there's Rachel Leah. It's really nothing of a chart, but it might help to keep just the whole cup over here. Why is it not moving around? It's not moving around. Okay, take it off. Shtei yevamos, Zu Meres Meis Bali, Zu Meres Meis Bali. Two sisters-in-law means that two brothers that are married to two wives, not to two sisters. Two brothers, each one's married, fine. Two brothers are married to two women. And each one says, now we know yevamos of those are five ladies that are not believed to testify for the other one. I can't say your husband died because she's scared she might become a co-wife, so they're not believed to say that your husband died. But she says, my husband died. Two sisters-in-law, yevamos, two sisters-in-law, meaning the wives of two brothers, each one says, my husband died. So what do we say? Usually, a woman can say my husband died, but here, okay, your husband died, but then you have to marry the brother-in-law. This is a yavam. No, he's not here right now. In fact, he might have died. But the two husbands, brothers, they went overseas, and each one comes back and says, and even the two women came back and they say my husband died. So each one cannot get married because can't marry out because there's a brother-in-law maybe. Maybe there's a brother-in-law out there. There's a yavam out there. Make sense so far? Just put it on for a second. I think that
Right, two brothers, okay, I got right. Okay.
Yeah, let's make it.
Tried to say that her husband died. There's no more you want.
Let me just put it on a second. Just it went off. It went off somehow. Oops. Went off. 1 second. How did I lose it? Okay. Is it worth anything? That let me just get a second. Just put it on. Maybe there'll be some help. Just be able to talk about the same names over here. Okay, and this. And second, okay. Okay. Reuven and Shimon are not here, and their wives Rachel and Leah come. Each one says, "My husband died." So Rachel, okay, we believe that the husband died, husband Reuven died, but maybe Shimon is alive, so you can't marry out because maybe you need Yibum. Also, Leah, she says her husband died, so we trust her as far as she's concerned, but she can't marry because maybe Reuven is alive. And as we know, so far we said that each one is not believed to say that your husband died, so each one cannot get married. That's the Mishnah that it says so far. Zu asu v'nei ba'al shel zu, v'zu asu v'nei ba'al shel zu. Each one is us because other husbands might be alive. How about l'zu edim v'l'zu ein edim? What about if one of them has Aiden, the other one doesn't? Ruchel has Aiden that her husband died, and Leah does not have Aiden that her husband died. So then Leah's in better shape because she's believed to say that my husband died, and she had their Aiden that Reuven died. But Reuven has Aiden that her husband died, but she doesn't know that Shimon died, so she's stuck. That's the next case. Lezu Aiden. The one who has witnesses that her husband died is us because maybe her brother-in-law is alive. That's because she's believed that her husband died and she has Aiden that the brother-in-law died. How about the Zubanim and Zubain Banim? One of them has children and one of them doesn't. So the one who has children has no problem with Yibum. She doesn't care if there's a brother-in-law or not because her husband died. She can marry out. And the one that doesn't have children, she's the one who's a problem because she doesn't know maybe she's Chayv Yibum and maybe her brother-in-law is alive. Okay, makes sense. Nisyabmu. Let's say there are more brothers. Here I just made up what do I do here? Again. Let's say there are more brothers. Besides Reuven and Shimon, there's also Levi and Yehuda. So Rachel's husband says her husband died, so she can't marry. Okay, Shimon's not around anyway, but she'll do Yibum. Okay, so she marries Levi, and Leah marries Yehuda, and then they die, Levi and Yehuda die. So we still don't know. Is Shimon alive? Is Reuben alive? We don't know. So there's still Asa. That's what it seems to say. If they will be happened to other brothers, and then they died. Still a suicide nasi because they're back to the same problem, back to square one, that they don't know if the other brother-in-law is still alive. The words seem to say that since they were mutter to the brothers, we allowed them to marry the brothers-in-law. What am I doing? I hope that it's still showing. That since we allow them to marry the other brothers, Levi and Yehuda, so we allow them to marry also, to marry out. What does that mean? It doesn't say why.
Maybe you died.
Maybe you died. So now we can assume that Reuben and Shimon also are dead, which doesn't. Why should that be? Just because what happened? So the Gemara is going to talk about it. Just to give a little hint, the Gemara is going to talk about if they acted upon it, and they actually married their brother-in-law.
Right.
That means that we have Leah married her brother-in-law, the Yehuda. So then we look at Leah. You really married your brother-in-law. You know that it means that she acted on it. She showed that she's saying the truth. Right. So then it seems that even Rachel could rely that Shimon's dead because Leah acted upon her word. So then she also could assume that Shimon's dead and she can marry out. That's the Mishnah probably means. We'll see as we go in the Gemara. It's a nice cute case that if one of them has Aiden and children, the other one has no Aiden and no children. One has Aiden that her husband died and also children. So she has children, she doesn't care about Shimon, right? And she's allowed to marry out. And she doesn't have children and doesn't have Aiden, but okay, but he has Aiden that this one died. If the Aiden that Reuven died, so then Leah is allowed to marry, even though she has no children. And if Rachel, who doesn't have Aiden that Shimon died, but she has a son, that's the case. Both of them are mutter. Okay, there's no chiddush, just pointing it out. New case. Now, new case means over here that it's going back to the point of the Mishnah. This was the Mishnah of Allah Omer at the end of the Mishnah, that since they were mutter to marry the Yevamin, then they're mutter also to marry anybody. Now we said the point of is going to be because they acted upon it. But the Gemara says only chat boy Rabba my time of the Abulazar. Why does Abulazar say it's mutter? Mishum dekasava atzara mi'ido lachavita, or dumo mishum dehi lo mutakala nafsha. So here the Gemara seems to entertain the possibility that he doesn't hold of the whole thing. We said that in the 5 women that are not believed to testify that your husband died. Over there we said a mother-in-law. What else did we say? A sister-in-law, sisters-in-law, tzoros. So here could be he argues on yevamos and tzoros. That's what the Gemara seems to entertain. Taisa has a kasha that he should have argued earlier. He should have argued in the Mishnah before. We'll leave that to Taisvis. But the Gemara is entertaining the possibility he doesn't hold the whole thing. That she is believed. This Mishnah, even though it says a fancy case, this Yadmu, then she's mutter. It could be Abulazar doesn't hold the whole thing. That a Yevama, a sister-in-law, is believed to say your husband died. Is that what Abulazar holds, or does it mean, like we said, it's because she wouldn't have messed herself up? That she wouldn't have acted upon her word just to mess up the other one. She wouldn't have acted upon it and actually married her brother-in-law. This woman over here, Leah says that my husband died, and therefore she's going to do Yibum to Yehuda, and she marries her brother-in-law. And if she doesn't know for sure that her husband is dead, she wouldn't have done that. If she showed that she's really acting upon her word, so then Rachel also could trust her and assume that Shimon is dead, and she could marry out. That's what the Gemara entertains two possibilities. Either one possibility that Stam, Rachel and Leah, the two sisters-in-law, are believed to testify for each other. Your husband died, or Staf over here because they say my husband died and she acts on it. So then Rachel could assume that it's true because she acted upon it. She wouldn't have married a brother-in-law. A married woman wouldn't have married a brother-in-law. Her husband is alive, and this is a brother-in-law. There's no yibum, so she wouldn't have done such an avera just to mess up her sister-in-law. That's the Gemara's two studim. What will be a difference between these two studim? Do we allow the co-wife to marry co-wife? Co-wife? No co-wives over here. Yevamos to marry, or in the case of a tzara also means the Gemara says that this machlokas of a Yevamos is also going to be by tzara. The whole reason why Yevamos don't like each other, the two sisters-in-law don't like each other, is because one day they might become co-wives. How come the Gemara says before that sisters-in-law are not believed to testify for each other? Because they don't like to be co-wives. And since it might happen, they might become co-wives one day. But here the Gemara says that are you allowed to trust the testimony of a co-wife before she acts on her own? Means two co-wives, and one comes and says, our husband died. Can the other one marry? So maybe if you go ahead and marry first, go ahead, marry. You say our husband died, so marry. If you marry, then I'll marry. Then she showed that she's really saying the truth because she acted upon her word. So can we believe her before she marries? If you say that she's believed, so okay, even though she herself doesn't get married, we could let the co-wife get married because she's believed. But if you say the only reason why he trusts is because she's not going to mess herself up and do an avera like that, just to get at the sister-in-law, if she marries, then we let the co-wife marry. If she didn't marry, we're not going to let her marry. So that what's Pshat in Rabbi Lazar? Rabbi Lazar doesn't hold of it at all, no chash, or just because she acted upon it, then we're not going to be choshesh. Tashma, Rabbi Lazar, Omer, hold b'hutru li'ibam and hutru l'chol adam. Mamish al Mishnah, that's how I read the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if they married, so then, here's the case. The case of the Mishnah was that if each one says, my husband died, and she did yibum to another brother, she mamish married another brother, so then the other wife could assume that she's saying the truth. So it says openly, it's only because she married, not because she said so, only because she married. Isn't it the if it's only trusted because she wouldn't have messed herself up, it's not saying the truth. So then, that's why after she marries, then we allow the other tzara to also marry, the other yevama. If it's because we trust her, so then it shouldn't have said only for the jibum. It should have said that she's trusted and the tzara is allowed to believe that her sister-in-law is saying the truth and her husband died, then she'd be allowed to marry. Don't we see that Rabbi Lazar only means because she's not going to mess herself up? Pretty beferish. So the Gemara says, no, it's not muchach. He could say Rabbi Lazar the Devim Kamalah, which only means to say that you should agree in this case. I hold the cloud that a Yevam and a Tzara, they all believe to testify for each other, and there is no such chashash that she's lying. But even you that hold there is such a chash, but at least agreed that if she acted upon it and she got married, she stuck her foot in her mouth and she got married, so then she surely is saying the truth. I personally hold that she can testify for her friend, and even if she didn't marry herself, we could marry the other wife, the co-wife, the sister-in-law. But at least agree to me that if she married, at least agree that much, that if she married, there's no chance she's lying. She wouldn't have gotten married to her brother-in-law if she knows that her husband is alive. The fascinating idea that the Gemara says that the Rabbanan say that a woman sometimes is so evil that she'd want to get her sister-in-law back and mess up her sister-in-law, that she's willing, that even though she knows her husband is alive, she would marry her brother-in-law, mamish, a fee of chenek and a fee of Taurus and everything, just to make her mess up her sister-in-law. That's what the Rabbanan seem to say. And the Gemara seems to say that that's Tam Rabbanan. It's mamish amido, she could say how far it goes. But the Gemara is still questioning, what does Rabbi Lazar hold? Does Rabbi Lazar hold that much she won't do, she won't mess herself up? Or does he hold that this time she's believed that she's trusted to testify for a co-wife and a sister-in-law? Tashma. The Gemara goes a little further. So far we had all this. This was a case where there were two co-wives. And we had the law that a woman is not believed to testify for her co-wife. And it says that a woman who went her and her husband to overseas, and she came back and said, my husband died. So she's believed for herself. She's not believed for the co-wife. So she could get married and even get the ksuba, but that's all it can. That's what it said. That's how much we know so far, that she's not believed for the tzara. But if she's permitted to get married, so is her tzara. So it's the Rashi says it was at this point thinks that even if she didn't marry, if she actually got married. Maybe Abelazar means that she actually got married, then we're going to trust that she's saying the truth. Not more is really interesting kasha. What are we saying? That if she acted upon it, now we see she's saying the truth. She came back, 2 co-wives, one of them comes back and says, our husband died. And I get married even. And then the other one's now she says, now you get married. I married. I showed that I'm saying the truth. Maybe really she got a get. That she's a real schemester. She got a get. And now she comes back and she wants to mess up her sister-in-law, her co-wife, her ex-co-wife, What's she scared of already? I don't get it. She's not a co-wife anymore. Even though the whole question of the co-wives was because it didn't sound like that. The same, okay, only was because
Women have a big imagination.
they were. So what she's gonna do? She got divorced. She went overseas. She got divorced. She comes back. She has to get, and she'll say her husband died, and I get married. You see, I got married, and then you get married also, and she get married. That husband comes back and says, "You're divorced, but what are you doing over here, married somebody else?" And maybe that was a plan. Now maybe she got to get, and she's getting married herself in order to be mechalkel the tzara, and she says her husband died. The Gemara says you're right. It's a good chash. Either insev Yisrael lachinami. My skin the insev lakohen. If she would marry Yisrael, then maybe she got to get. But if she marries a Kohen, she wouldn't marry a Kohen if she's a Grusha. It has to be that her husband died. She's a big tzaddik. She wouldn't marry a Kohen if she's a Grusha. She just would do the rest of the stuff to mess her up. But she would not marry a Kohen. So then, that's how the Gemara goes, that according to Balazar, a new point, everyone don't hold it. Everyone hold the whole thing, that she'd rather mess herself up in order to mess up the other one. Also, you don't trust her, even if she sticks herself out. But Balazar maybe holds that even if she sticks herself out, and she does a avera, that shows that she's not doing an avera, or maybe she's trusted the Gami. The Gemara doesn't know. The Gemara leaves it as a question. What does Rabbi hold? What's the reason why she is believed? Is it because Tam holds that she's believed, or only because she did an act to show that she's saying the truth? Easier subject now. And now you want to come to Islam. Either to say someone died, either the Eidecha, two Eidim, the woman. How could she know that this is the husband? She sees somebody dead. How does she know that it's him? So if she knows who it is, no question, she knows who it is. But if the question is just identification, how much you have to be able to identify the corpse in order to say who it is? So it says, you have to be able to see, I saw the face with the nose. If you don't see the nose, if the nose is deformed or something like that, that's not called that you have the facial in order to be able to testify on it. I think even when they want to blur a picture, nowadays they blur the whole picture when they want to put a picture not to see it. They used to just cover up the nose, I think. Remember those days? When they wanted to show a picture, they didn't want to show who it is, so they would cover up the nose. I think with the eyes, here it says the nose. That if you don't have the nose, you can't tell the face. Even if there are other kind of identification marks on the body, that's not enough. And also on the kalim, there's clothing or something like that. Maybe they change clothing. You can't bring a proof from the fact that there's other identification marks, and that's after the face. The most we'll talk about simanim. We'll get to that tomorrow. Next point, states an nafsho. You can't testify only if you saw that he's dead. But even if he was almost dead, that's not good enough. Even if you saw that he was chopped up, or he was crucified, or he was animal was eating him, but you didn't see him dead, you can't say I saw him dead. You have to say that's not enough. You don't know if maybe at the last minute he got saved, but you only have to say testimony that I saw him dead. Only testify within 3 days of the death, because after that the face changes, the body changes, the face changes, and he might look like somebody because of the change, and really it's not him. You think it's him, it's not him. It looks like somebody after he changed, but according to his original form, it was not him. People are not the same. Places, environment is not the same. Temperature and the time is not the same. So it's not a set rule. 3 days. You have to know that it's the same person, that it didn't have, you have to know that it didn't have time to change form. It has to be the original. I don't know what he says, but he says 3 days is not going to be a standard rule. That the forehead is also necessary to be part of the facial expression. That it can't just be the face and the nose. It has to be the face, the nose, and also the forehead. If you only see the forehead, it's not enough. And the face without the forehead is also not enough. Until you have both of them, the forehead, the face, and also the nose. Would you see that the corresponding that their face testifies against them? The pasuk shot is over there talking about that. You look at their face and see what they're doing. But the Gemara is saying that the face is what testifies who the person is. So you have to be able to see the face in order to testify who he is, and not the rest of the body. Like we said that below. How does it say in the Mishnah? Was not good enough. It has to be the face. Abba bar Marsa, who Abba bar Menumi, have a maski bay the baby Zuzi. The boss is going to say something about the forehead. You have to have the forehead in order to be able to tell who it is. There was a person, his name was Abba bar Marsa, whose other name is Abba bar Menumi, that he owed money to the Beis Galusa, and they were a tough character, tough people, and he had to pass by them. He was scared they're going to jump on him. I see Kira Davak Balyasa, Ve Davak Afuse, Falaf Kamai, Shekua. He took some wax and stuck it onto a rag and put it onto his forehead, and he was able to pass by, and they didn't recognize him. That means even though they saw him, but they didn't see his forehead, so they didn't recognize him.
Did a show.
He did, yeah. He wanted to masquerade himself, so to put it, even just to put, if he would have covered his whole face, they would have said, "Who's that?" Then they would have checked who he is. But this was enough that they thought that they thought they saw him, and it wasn't him, but really it wasn't because they didn't see the forehead. Adkan, Yashikova. I guess we're going a little faster today, because according to us, we realize that the scene won't be able to be Sunday either because it's Shabbos B'Tammuz. It's going to be Shmona B'Tammuz. It's really Shabbos. It's Shabbos, but it's a Nitches. So then the fast is going to be Sunday.
When it falls out on Shabbos.
Falls out on Shabbos. So Yitches.
Could the sugar of the B'Tammuz ever could fall out on Friday? Can it fall out?
No, only Asar B'Tavis. Only Asar B'Tavis. So it falls out. So if we're not going to do it on Friday and Shabbos and Sunday, it's going to be Monday. I hope it'll be. So the possibility is to maybe finish on Thursday. If it's possible, we're going a little bit fast. I think we'll be able to finish by Thursday, and the scene could be on Thursday if that's possible.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay.
So we're going. We did a little bit extra today. We did like a half and a half, and I think maybe we could do a little bit faster for the next couple of days. Today's Tuesday, so I think we could do it for Thursday if that's good with everybody.
Okay, so Avi Fine is the one that because he's supposed to bring meat.
Okay, so we'll ask Ari if he can do that.
So-
Okay.